Hey everyone, it's Brandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in August. In August I finished a total of 10 books, so I'm going to be talking about those. But before I get into the books, I do have a couple stats that I want to go over. Throughout last month I read a total of 2,934 pages, which is quite a lot. I feel like I didn't think I read that much, but it's not the most that I've read this year. And my average rating for the month was a 3.75 stars. Now I'm going to get into the books, and unlike what I did with my last 2-month wrap up, I'm going to go back to going from my lowest rated book to my highest rated book. So starting with my lowest rated book, that was Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. I gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars. I'm pretty sure pretty much everyone has heard of this story at least by now. This follows this group of children who have similar stories that they tell to each other about this place called Neverland, and one of their story characters, Peter Pan, actually comes to hear these stories that they tell, and he ends up taking them back with him to Neverland, and the journey kind of starts from there. I have seen the movie. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure I've probably seen like the animated Disney movie, but I don't remember it. It was like an early 2000s version that was like a live action remake of it that I remember watching a lot growing up, and that's the version that I have seen. And I will say that that one stayed pretty close to the storyline. However, when it came to this writing, I just did not like it at all, and that kind of took away from the story. So even though I knew the basis of the story, watching the movie, I didn't have to deal with the narrator of the story. I didn't like how everything was set up. And yeah, it was an okay story, and I think I gave it a 2 stars just for the nostalgia purposes of watching that movie so much, and I really enjoy that. I do have a physical copy of the movie, so I might watch that at some point just because I really do like that movie. But as far as the book goes, I didn't really enjoy it that much, and I don't really know if I'm going to hold on to this. Moving up, I have one book that I gave a 3 out of 5 stars, and that was Liar by Stephanie Sinclair. This book follows this woman named Corey. I'm pretty sure that's her name, or at least the name that she goes by often. At the beginning of the story, she is in some type of business. I can't remember exactly what she was doing, but she is actually prepping for a promotion, and in order to kind of get herself out there, she goes to this fundraiser that her job is hosting, and she ends up running into her ex-fiance and her ex-best friend, which they're actually currently engaged to each other. So when she runs into them, she's trying to find the best way to get out of this situation, and the first guy she makes eye contact with, she kind of pulls him over and pretends that that is her fiance, and he ends up playing along with her, and the story basically takes off from there. I have a written review for this book if you guys would like to check it out. I feel like I don't always go into all my thoughts because I try not to be too negative in those reviews, but I did point out a few things. So with this book, it started off really strong for me. I had previously read a book by this author, and I just really wasn't the biggest fan of it because like in that one, some of those issues kind of carried into this one, but I was really surprised when I first started this book. I was just like, okay, she is definitely fixing those things that I really didn't like about the first book, and she's taking the time to really show the characters getting to know each other and things like that, and taking the time for their relationship to progress and not just kind of smushing it all together and kind of just, letting it like just kind of going play by play for what's happening, like from plot point to plot point. However, about the midway mark, it kind of converted and did exactly what I didn't like from the first book. So I think a problem with this book was that the author spent so much time working on the setup of this fake relationship that when things started progressing from a fake relationship to them starting to realize that they might actually have feelings for each other, they didn't have enough time to really live in that moment, or the reader didn't have enough time to really live in that moment, and I just really did not like that. I feel like this could have been way better if the author had just made it a full-length novel. I think it was like 190 something pages, so if she had given it maybe at least another 100 pages, there would have been time to develop the relationship and be able to live in the little moments of their relationship. And yeah, so I gave this one, like I said, a 3 out of 5 stars. Moving on, I'm now going to talk about the books that I gave 3.5 stars to, and I have 2 of those. The first one that I'm going to talk about is The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. This is a kind of like I don't want to say mixed media, but almost a mixed media novel that is told partly in prose and then partly in illustrations. So but this one, I feel like, I know one of his novels is kind of split down the middle, like the front part is pictures and the rest of it is prose. This is kind of mixed in together. But this book follows this orphan. His name is Hugo Cabret. He lives in a Paris train station. I don't want to give too much of this away, so I'm not really going to say anymore. I will just say that he meets this girl and this kind of grumpy old man, but as they get to know each other more, they find out stuff about each other and things like that, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. I thought this was an enjoyable read. It wasn't quite what I was expecting. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. The story just, I guess, didn't wow me. The concept and the way it was done definitely, like, really took it to the next level. But as for the actual story, I just thought it was okay. And the next book that I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars to was The Darkest Star by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the first book in the Origins series, which is actually a spin-off of her previous Lux series. So this follows a character named Evie Dasher, and I think this takes place about 5 years after the end of the Lux series. So everyone knows that the Luxan aliens exist, and we kind of follow the aftermath of what happened after everything was revealed, and part of the alien race tried to take over the earth. The main female character, her father was actually part of the government program. So her father, we knew he actually appeared in the previous series, but she didn't really know him, so she kind of just knew what her mother told her. And we also have Luke, who was also a character that was in previous books. He is the origin, which is explained in this book, but if you have read the Lux series, then you will know what the origins are. So if you've read that and you probably remember Luke, he is the main male character in this one. I enjoyed this, but it wasn't as good as I was expecting / hoping it to be. I think my biggest issue with this one was because it was written to be read as a standalone. If the person didn't want to go back and read the Lux series, there was a lot of info dumping in the beginning, and it was a lot of information that I had already learned in the Lux series. So a good portion of this, I was just like, okay, I'm bored because I know all of this stuff already. I feel like not a lot happened in this. I know that's kind of crazy to say, but I feel like there was so much time being reintroduced into the world that there wasn't really too much going on. This main character really just had to figure things out and then realize that things may not have been as they seemed. And I was kind of guessing that what happened, like the twist in this, what it was, because I was wondering how things would play out from previous books and how characters happened, what stuff happened. Anyway, I'm rambling on and on. There were some things that were brought up that I feel like are really gonna take the rest of this series to the next level. Although I did enjoy this one as much as I was hoping to, I am definitely looking forward to continuing in this series. Moving on to my next section, I'm now going to talk about my 4-star reads, and I have 4 of those. The first one I'm going to talk about is Dry Spell by Mia London and Susan Sheehy. I feel terrible because I honestly do not remember the characters' names. I do also have a written review for this one as well. This is the first book in the Sweet Escapes series, and I will actually be reading and reviewing the second book in the series. The female main character, she is kind of a workaholic, and she is going through some stressful things at work. She is actually also, like a previous book I mentioned, she is prepping for a possible promotion. So she is doing all this work and trying to get all these clients and all of these things that are centered around her job. And her two best friends, or her two best friends, it's like, you need a vacation, we're taking this time off, you're gonna come with us. While there, she meets this guy, and one thing leads to another, and they decide to kind of see each other while she's down there for the week. He kind of takes her out of her shell and kind of gets her to do things that she normally wouldn't do, and she actually enjoys herself. And they start to possibly develop feelings for each other, but they are, or she is like, I'm only here for a week, this won't last past this time. And as you can expect with a contemporary romance novel, things aren't always like that cut and dry. So yeah. I feel like I'm rambling on about this because I don't remember too many of the details. I just know that I surprisingly really enjoyed this one. I remember that I fell in love with the characters. I was really surprised by how much I fell in love with these characters, and like fell in love with them being together. And I was really happy with how things happened, and like just how everything ended up working out in the end. And I'm glad I read this. The next 4-star read I have is Angel Fall by Susan E. And this was one of the books from the Wicked Spirits book club for August. I was about to say October for some reason. Anyway, this is a dystopian novel. It's like almost like a dystopian urban fantasy paranormal. It's like a big mix of stuff. Anyway, angels pretty much come down to Earth and kind of take over. This character, she's kind of responsible for her family members that are currently with her. At the beginning of the story, she is trying to move her family from one place to the next because you know, there are gangs claiming certain areas, and she's trying to get them to a safe spot. But in the process of trying to move them, they run into these angels, and there are a few different angels fighting this one, and she ends up helping him out in hopes that he can help her, or like so she doesn't get killed by the other angels. But in the process of trying to help him, one of the other angels that was attacking Rafe or Raph or whatever his name is takes her little sister, and they basically team up because he wants to kind of destroy these angels, I believe, and she is asking him to help her get to her sister so she can save her sister from these other angels. And they basically take off on a journey from there. There is a lot that happened in the story, and honestly I kind of wish that I hadn't listened to the audiobook, because I feel like certain parts I remember really well, but other parts I was kind of in and out for because I didn't necessarily like the narrator. The actual story was really good. Like I said, this one got a 4 out of 5 stars to me. The next 4-star read I have is Fence Volume 1 by C.S. Pacat. Basically, this is a comic book about fencing. I thought this was really interesting. I know nothing about fencing, but I saw Melanie from Mel to the Any. If you've seen either her blog or Instagram, she kind of pops up all over the book community. I've seen her around in several places, but she was talking about this one, and I was just like, I've seen it around, and I was interested, but I didn't know, because I was like, I don't know anything about fencing. I don't know if I would enjoy that. But she talked about it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pick it up and give it a chance, and I actually really enjoyed it. I will say not too much happened in the story. It's kind of an introduction to the characters and their situation, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the rest of the series goes from this point forward. And my last 4-star read of the month was To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. I've had this on my TBR for like for over a year now. I had picked it up from Book Outlet. I don't even know when I picked it up, but I know I picked it up. But I have been putting it off because it was one of those series I was like, I'm interested in it, but it's an older series and I don't know when I'm going to get to it. But pretty much as everyone else was doing when the movie was announced to be coming out in August, I was like, I want to read the book before the movie. And I had the book. And after talking to a couple people, they said that the movie that was put up on Netflix didn't spoil anything for later in the series. So I decided to just go ahead and pick it up. And I feel like I got through this pretty quickly. It wasn't what I was expecting at all. And I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this. While this story is kind of a focus on these love letters getting out in Lara Jean's love life, basically, this book handles so much more, and I feel like the movie kind of cut a little bit of that out, or you don't get as many details about some of the stuff. So we get to see a lot of the family relationship that they have, and her father, or their father, trying to keep their cultural ties kind of close to them since their mother passed away. And we get to see, you know, what it's like when sisters fight, or, you know, when they're mad at each other, but how they end up coming back together anyway. And we get to see Lara Jean coming out of her shell. It was just, this book handled so much, and I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed this. I will say it wasn't perfect, however, it was really good. It was really good. This is probably going to be one of my new favorite YA contemporary series. I have the second book. I plan on getting the third one, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series to see how it all plays out. Next, I have one 4.5 star read, and that one is Once Burned by Janine Frost. This was the second book, part of the Wicked Spirits book club, and this one is a paranormal, it's an adult urban fantasy paranormal romance. I kind of just lump all of those together pretty much. This one is centered around a vampire, and it's actually Vlad Dracul, or what most people know as Dracula, or who Dracula was based off of. But don't call him that, because he gets really upset by that term. He's like, you know, that's nothing like me, and all of this stuff. We follow this main character. She has two names. She at first goes by Frankie, and I think her real name is like Leslie or Layla. Starts with an L. I do know that. When she was younger, she actually ended up almost dying from getting electrocuted by a fallen power line or something like that. And she ended up healing, but when she did that, she had this electricity built up inside of her. So if she touches anybody, she could shock them, and it could sometimes be so bad where she can actually kill them just from touching them. And also with this, developed the power to, when she touches things, she can either see things from the past or see things from the future, or she can possibly trace people in the present time. She is working in a circus and she's actually working with a vampire. So she knows that vampires exist. And she gets taken by this group of vampires because they're looking for Vlad, who I mentioned at the beginning. They're looking for him, and they give her all of this stuff to basically try to find him or find out where he will be in the future so they can ambush him. And she ends up basically asking him for help, and he comes to help her and kind of takes her back with him to his house in Romania until they figure out who exactly is trying to find her and why, and all of these things. And I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this. I don't know why. Just know I love this book so much, and I actually bought the rest of the books already, and they're on their way to me. I bought physical copies of them, and they're on their way to me. So I plan on finishing off this series, and I feel like I don't really have a lot more to say about this. Just know I loved it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series. And the last book that I have to talk about is the only book that I gave 5 stars to in August, and that one was The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. And you guys, I have been wanting to read this since I picked it up. I freaking loved this. This is a book told completely in verse. The author actually reads the audiobook, and I ended up listening to this one, and I am already planning on going back and reading the physical copy and annotating. The majority of these, I have not been in this similar situation as the main character, but there were a few poems that I definitely was like, this is my life. I was just like, yes. I think this is a book that everyone should read to learn about different experiences in life. But while I was reading this, I kept going back and was like, is this the author's story? And while she might have taken truths from her life for this, I think that this was fiction. Like, this is all fictional. And I kept thinking, like, this is the author's story that she's sharing with us. This was her life. And I had to keep reminding myself, like, no, this is a fictional character. You know, this is not real life. That's how much I was like engrossed in this, and how much I fell in love, and how much I felt the story that she was telling. This was absolutely amazing. This is going to be one of my favorite books of the year. I already know it. I loved it so much, and I can't wait to check out more from this author. Okay, I feel like half of that I really just rambled on and on, but those are the 10 books that I read in August. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought about them down in the comments. Also, let me know some of the books that you read in August. That's all I have for you guys today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more from me, make sure you subscribe. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys again later this week for actually my August book haul, so be looking out for that. So yeah, bye.